Hello and welcome to Health Matters. In this episode, we talk about the dreaded C word, cancer. And today we will focus on facts and some fiction. With us in the studio today is Dr. Eugene Rent, surgical oncologist from Tata Memorial, Mumbai, who is now at Manipal Hospital in Goa. Dr. Eugene is a member of the St. Luke's Medical Guild. Doctor, welcome to the show.
Thank you.
Thank you for making the time here. Now, as you are aware, cancer is a word that's always struck fear in people. And yet in the last so many years, we hear of it so frequently. So to start with, what is cancer?
So to explain what cancer is in 5 minutes is a little difficult, but
Okay.
I'll give it a shot.
Okay.
So basically, if you look at the human body, the body as we know it is made of about 100 trillion cells.
Okay.
Okay. And these cells, they start off from a single cell. So when a husband and wife get together, they produce one cell which becomes 2, 4, 8, 16 and it goes on dividing that way.
Right.
It grows and grows and finally it forms a baby.
Okay.
Now once a baby is born, the baby starts to grow and becomes an adult. So during the growth phase, again you have cells which are going on dividing and the child becomes an adult. Once you become an adult, the cell division does not stop there.
Okay.
You lose hair, you have a bit of, your skin falls off, you get a few cuts and things like that.
Right.
So the cell division is a constant process. And from what I've told you, if you notice, initially it's very fast. As a fetus, it's very fast. In a child, it is fast. And as an adult, it's very, very slow.
Okay.
Okay. So this happens because there's a small switch in the cell. Every cell in the body has got a switch.
Okay.
It's just like an on-off switch which you use for lights. When you switch it on, the cell divides. When you switch it off, the cell stops dividing.
Okay.
Okay. Now this switch gets damaged. The cell does not know when to divide and when not to divide.
Okay.
And when this switch gets damaged, it causes cancer. So for example, if a cell in the breast gets damaged, that cell starts to divide and it forms breast cancer.
Okay.
In the stomach, it starts to divide in the stomach and you get stomach cancer. So basically,
Okay.
cancer is a damage to the on-off mechanism in a switch which tells the cell when to divide and when not to divide. So
Okay.
it starts dividing on its own without listening to the body. So
Okay.
that's basically what cancer is. It's a uncontrolled, uninhibited growth of cells.
Okay. So when does it occur or what causes this?
So basically, I explain it as two main causes. If you talk of cancer, there are two main causes. One is genetics. Genetics means it's transferred from the parent to the child.
Right.
Now the minute you hear genetics, don't get scared. If a relative of yours has cancer, it does not mean you are going to get cancer. For it to be genetic, you should have at least 2 to 3 members in the family who have cancer. And the cancer should be under the age of 50, preferably under the age of 40. So there are multiple people under the age of 40 who have cancer, then your cancer could be genetic. Otherwise it's unlikely.
Okay.
The second one is irritants. Now people ask me, does kurkure cause cancer? Does Maggi cause cancer? The easiest way to explain it is anything under the sun, including the sun, in excess will cause cancer. Anything
Okay.
in excess. To give you an example, let me take alcohol. Now, if someone drinks alcohol once in a way, what happens? The alcohol goes into the tummy, it goes to the liver, and a few cells in the liver get damaged.
Okay.
Now, what happens when the cells get damaged? The switch comes on, the liver cells get repaired, and the switch goes off, the switch I told you earlier.
Right.
Now, if they drink twice a day, what happens? The switch comes on and comes off twice a day. If you drink thrice a day, it comes on and comes off thrice a day. Now, just compare this to a switch in your house. If you switch it on once a day and switch it off, nothing happens. Twice a day, nothing happens. But if a child goes on pressing the switch on,
Yeah.
off, on, off, on, off, the switch gets
mechanism.
spoiled, right?
Right.
The same thing happens to the liver cells. Constantly consuming alcohol, the alcohol will go on irritating the liver, and at some point of time, that cell gets damaged, and that
Okay.
causes liver cancer.
Okay.
Same with packaged foods, processed foods. Constantly eating processed foods goes on irritating the stomach, which
Okay.
gives rise to stomach cancer,
Okay.
and so on and so forth. So basically, the main problems are cigarettes, alcohol, smoked foods, canned foods, excessive sunlight, obesity, and in women for breast cancer, it is excess estrogen exposure. That is not having children at late age, and infections. So these are the 8 main causes of cancer.
Okay.
And then there are the other small other causes in excess.
Okay. Now, you talked about cigarettes, and you also talked about smoked foods. Does smoking play a part?
Smoking is one of the biggest causes of cancer that we know of. It is not lung cancer and mouth cancer, it is 18 different types of cancers in the body. Mouth, lung, throat cancer, bladder cancer, pancreatic cancer, cancer in women. So all these, there are 18 different cancers caused because of smoking. And in my practice, about 70% of my patients are smokers. In India, it's not just tobacco smoking, it's chewing tobacco, which is just as bad.
Right.
Tambaku, pan, masheri, all these things, the quids what they keep in their mouth, this is giving rise to a phenomenal number of cancers. Like I said, about 70% of my patients are smokers or previous smokers.
That's important to know because one always associates smoking and tobacco with primarily lung cancer or oral cancer. So therefore, is cancer preventable?
Not preventable per se. You cannot get your risk down to zero, but you can cut down on your risk. So basically, you can reduce your risk as much as possible. Rule number 1, rule number 2 and rule number 3 is the same, stop smoking. So that's first and foremost the most important thing you got to do. Then it is about leading a healthy lifestyle. That is, you need to have regular health checkups. Try to go for a walk at least 3 to 4 times a week. Eat healthy food. Now if you have a choice between eating Maggi or eating cut vegetables and fruits, you can always pick the vegetables and fruits. If your kids are hungry in the evening, give them some fruits and vegetables. I'm sure they'll enjoy it more with a little chili powder and salt rather than giving them some packed food which has been technically cooked 3 months back and put in a packet in the shop. So pick a healthy lifestyle. Sexual promiscuity is another problem giving rise to cervical cancer in women these days. And a regular health checkup, a yearly health checkup is something that's really going to help you in bringing down your risk of developing cancer.
What are symptoms of cancer?
So basically, cancer can affect any organ in the body. So each organ has got a different symptom complex. It's difficult to tell you this organ causes this symptom, this organ causes this symptom. But the easiest way to remember it is, if you have any symptom, absolutely any symptom that persists for more than 6 weeks, you need to get it checked up. For example, you have a hoarse throat. You have hoarseness of the voice which is not reducing for 6 weeks. You have a cough which is not settling for 6 weeks. Blood in the motions, blood in the urine, or in women if your periods are gone off the hook for 6 weeks, you're having a completely, these symptoms persisting for about 6 weeks, get it checked up. 99% of the time it may not be cancer, but 1% of the time it could be cancer. So it's better to get it checked up, because even if it's not cancer, the cough could be tuberculosis, it could be some infection. All these things need treatment. So my concept is, if you have a symptom for 6 weeks, get it checked up and start on treatment. If you have it once at the end of 6 weeks, you get the test done, you're told this is your diagnosis, it is not cancer, they start treatment for it. In 3 weeks, if your symptoms do not reduce, go for a checkup again. For example, blood in the motions, very, very often is diagnosed as hemorrhoids and treated as hemorrhoids. After treatment, if your symptoms don't reduce, get a second opinion. Because 9 out of 10 of my rectal cancer patients say I had hemorrhoids for the last 2 years and now it has become cancer. It is not that they had hemorrhoids for 2 years, it was cancer 2 years back which was misdiagnosed. The symptoms which are normally missed out is fever and weight loss. So if you're having continuous fever, especially in children, and if you're having weight loss despite eating normally and normal activities and all that, these are 2 things which you should not ignore. Never ignore fever and weight loss in children.
And when you say continuous fever, meaning like fever, a couple of days break, fever again, like
fever,
that?
No, it's
like
generally
intermittent?
alternate days, or once in 2-3 days you'll have a high fever in the evening and then it stops. Then 2-3 days later, a fever again, it stops. So this is a sign of blood cancers, the leukemias and lymphomas which are common in children.
Now, with everything that you said, and you said, go back for a second opinion, etc. Is there screening available for cancer, and should people be looking at it?
Screening is very, very important. It should be started at the age of 40. So ideally at the age of 40, you start screening. In women, they do a mammogram to check for breast cancer. They do a cervical pap smear to check for cervical cancer. On top of this, there are a few blood tests which are done, and abroad they do not do an ultrasound, but in India we do an ultrasound as a part of your screening package. In men, you will substitute the pap smear and the mammogram with a PSA, which is a test to check for prostate cancer. So these tests have to be done once a year or on alternate years at least,
Okay.
The ideal way I say is get it done on your birthday. It's the best birthday present you can give yourself. That's a complete clean sheet of health. And follow up with the doctor. Once you get all these tests done, go to a doctor. He'll check all your reports. He'll give you a complete workup of things to be done. And for women, they'll teach you how to do a breast self-examination, which is very, very important.
Important. So how does one go about getting the screening? Do you just ask your regular GP or doctor for it? Or?
So basically, it should be at an institute which has got a mammogram machine, because the mammogram requires a special machine for it.
Okay.
And the physical checkup can be basically done by any doctor.
Okay.
So ideally, like for example, we at Manipal Hospital, we have a screening package.
Okay.
Where the entire package is done for about $1,500.
Okay.
Where just a mammogram is actually 1,400. But
Okay.
for 1,500, they're doing the entire package.
Okay.
So you can just walk in there and get in touch with me, and I can
Okay.
organize the whole screening thing for you, no problem.
Okay. Now, cancer is no longer a blanket death sentence like we used to think it was many years ago. So, what are the treatment options available?
The problem is, like you said, the blanket treatment. If you look at the press, no offense intended, but the minute people want to say something bad, they say it's a cancer. So that's given a real bad name to the disease. Overall, the cure rate in cancer is about 60%.
Okay.
And we say that it's 60% because a lot of patients come in late stages as well.
Right.
For example, if you take exclusive first stage breast cancer, the cure rate is over 90%, first and second stage.
Okay.
You take thyroid cancer, across the blanket, across all stages, it's about 90%.
Okay.
A few cancers, yes, like pancreatic, stomach, are a little notorious, esophagus as well. But most of the cancers in first and second stage, you're looking at a cure rate of above 80%, most of them above 90%.
Okay.
If the treatment is done properly.
Okay.
Treatment, again, there is surgery, there is chemotherapy, there is radiation, and there's hormone treatment, and then there's the new targeted therapies available.
Okay.
Do not try to decide on your own. Always ask your doctor as to what is the right treatment for your disease.
Okay.
It's the doctor who takes the decision, and generally you have about 3 or 4 doctors who get together and take the right decision as to what's going to be your treatment.
Okay. I'd like to go back to the screening, and one of the things to ask you is there a particular demographic, or are there certain kinds of people that you think should definitely consider screening?
Like I said, above 40, everyone should get a screening done.
Okay.
Under that, if you have a genetic background, that is, if you have 3-4 relatives who have had cancer, especially
Right.
colon cancer or breast cancer, ovarian cancer. If
Okay.
you have had multiple relatives who have had these cancers,
Okay.
then you need to ask your doctor and get the screening protocol for you.
Okay.
Colonoscopy abroad is a part of the screening package, but in
Okay.
India we do not do it because patients refuse. The minute you tell someone colonoscopy, they stop screening after that.
Really?
Yeah, so we have replaced it with an ultrasound in India. But if you
Okay.
look at international data, they all do a colonoscopy 5 yearly as a part of the screening.
Okay.
But
Okay.
here we replace it with an ultrasound.
So an ultrasound being now part of screening, because I know of people, for example, where there has been a family member that has had colon cancer, and then all of the immediate blood relatives ensure that at a certain periodicity, whether I think initially it's a year and then every 3 years or so,
Yeah.
they religiously undergo colonoscopy. So are you saying that's actually been
No, that's actually
replaced?
indicated. No, that should be done.
Okay.
But I put it in a different way. Me being an oncologist, I couldn't convince my own father to go for a colonoscopy. It is
Okay.
that difficult to convince an Indian patient.
Okay.
So ultrasound is substandard. It is a way substandard. I do not indicate it. I say colonoscopy is the gold standard.
Okay.
But if somebody is going to say across the board, I'm not going to get a colonoscopy done, we then
Right.
replace it with a stool blood test along with an ultrasound just to
Okay.
be comfortable, because our radiologists here are good. They pick up stuff.
Okay. Now, hair fall is an extremely visible sign in cancer treatment, even during the disease, and obviously it's very sensitive, especially for women. I'm guessing that is one of the things that women will talk to you about. Does it impact their openness to treatment, and then how do you work around that?
So that's been a big problem for us. A lot of our patients, in fact, I got one patient right now admitted under me in hospital who's saying, I will not take chemotherapy because of the hair fall. You got to remember 2 things. The hair fall is replaceable. The hair always comes back. The life that is lost is irreplaceable. You're not going to get that life back. because without chemotherapy, there's a very, very, very high chance your disease is going to come back. And the chance of cure with chemotherapy goes up drastically. And second thing is, a lot of drugs these days do not cause hair fall.
Okay.
The doctors can change from one, there are a lot of protocols available. There are certain protocols which do not give rise to hair fall. If it gives rise to hair fall, there are state-of-the-art wigs available, where you really do not know, you cannot differentiate who's the patient and the relative when you look at them, because there are such good wigs available right now.
Okay.
So, refusing treatment because of your hair fall is something that I would not advise people to do, because you're really playing with life if you do that. You're losing out on the possible benefits of 15-20 years which your doctor is going to give you.
Right, right. Now, is it true that the incidence of cancer is growing? And I'm asking simply because of late, in the last few years, we just seem to hear about it and its occurrence so often. Far, far more than we did, I would say, about 15-20 years ago, where it was literally something that was extraordinary. Now it no longer seems to be.
Okay, so the incidence is increasing a little bit. I mean, there's not like a major increase in incidence. But let me ask you one simple question. You think back as to your grandparents' friends or your grandparents' brothers or sisters and all, what did they die of? You don't really know about it. Nobody had information at that time.
Correct, that's true.
So today if I ask you, what did your neighbor's uncle die of, you'll tell me what he died of. Because of WhatsApp, because of Facebook, because of all these social media, we know exactly what's happening in people's lives. So that's what happened today. It's not that the incidence is increased. Knowledge about the disease, diagnosis of the disease. Earlier people used to be undiagnosed. If a child dies of leukemia, they used to say he died of malaria. If somebody died of advanced lung cancer, they would say he died of heart attack. So it was a lot of things were number one not diagnosed.
Yeah.
And when it was diagnosed, the person would be at home. No one would really know what's happening, and eventually they would die of disease at home. Now people go out, they talk about it on social media. You hear about it, and that's the reason why the information about the disease is spreading. It's not that the incidence is increasing. It's knowledge about the disease and information about the disease is increasing because of social media.
Okay.
So there's no need to panic. So you can be calm about it. Like I told you, follow the 6-week rule. Any symptom for more than 6 weeks, get it evaluated.
Okay. Now, what kind of costs should one be prepared for with cancer treatment? And assuming, okay, so if you can tell me that first.
So the cancer treatment is expensive. There's no denying it. It's extremely expensive. But the beauty of being in Goa is the Deen Dayal scheme.
Okay.
So the government has come up with this Deen Dayal scheme where they give you a card. You need to go to your health center and get it done. And right now they're enrolling people for the scheme. So like if you look at in our hospital, for example, I'm working in Manipal Hospital, the entire treatment minus the initial investigations is done free of cost. The entire surgery, the entire radiation, and most of the chemotherapy, a few drugs are not covered, but most of the chemotherapy is done completely free of cost. So they only pay for the investigation done before. Thus you'll need a CT scan and biopsy, that's it, to prove the disease.
Okay.
From the day your disease is proven, till the day you complete your treatment, everything is absolutely free.
That's a huge easing of the burden.
Yeah, it's an amazing thing which the government has done. Simply because the patient has got the psychological things, the family things, there are so many other things to worry about.
Yeah.
Getting the economical issues out of the way is like a huge boon to patients.
Yeah. But otherwise, if not in Goa or for somebody that's not a resident, typically what kind of costs might we be looking at?
So basically it looks at what comfort level. See, the thing is, in a lot of corporates and a lot of other major hospitals, they look at a comfort level, whether you're picking a major full room or whether you're picking a general ward and things like that. So the costs vary based on that. And they vary on which drug companies you're picking for the chemotherapy.
Okay.
So the thing is not that some chemos are substandard.
Okay.
But what happens with the cheaper drugs is you don't know how good the storage was, how good the transport was and things like that. So these play a big role. But for those who think financial constraints are there, there are options available to treat them at a cheaper rate.
Okay.
And there's something called as the Goa Cancer Society in Goa.
Okay.
So they give you a flat out 50,000 financial grant.
Okay.
And the hospital generally backs it up with another 50,000 grant from the hospital side. So it's a 1 lakh grant across the table which is available to the patients.
Wonderful. Every hospital?
Manipal does it, I know for sure.
Okay.
Other hospitals I'm not very sure, but Manipal Hospital I know does it.
Oh, that's great.
So these are all fantastic schemes which are available for patients these days.
Okay.
which will benefit them, those who have a financial issue with treatment.
Okay. What is your take on cancer treatment available in Goa? Because you said earlier also we've got really good radiologists that will pick things up. We still hear about people going to Bombay for treatment, for example. So how would you rate the quality of
So I
treatment
always tell a
available?
lot of my patients, if you're going to go to Mumbai, end of the day you're an outsider, you're going to be treated like a B-grade citizen there. You're always going to
Okay.
be given the second rung where the locals are given priority. We do the same thing here as well. We give all locals the priority.
Right.
The second thing is there's the wait list. Like for example, in Tata, I worked in Tata for 4 years. I know what it's like. You have patients who come today and get a date of surgery 3 months later. There's a massive waiting list. There's the cost of treatment is not there, but the cost of accommodation, the cost of food. You do
Right.
not get good quality food because you're not getting home cooked food.
Right.
So there are a lot of issues with leaving your hometown and going outside for treatment.
Okay.
In Goa per se, we got very, very good surgeons. Like for example, Dr. Shekhar Salkar and I are at Manipal Hospital.
Okay.
If you go down south, there's Jaminezis, who's a fantastic oncosurgeon. We work together in Mumbai.
Okay.
So there are so many of us who are oncosurgeons who are trained at the premier institutes.
Okay.
So when you have facilities in your own hometown, why run here and there for treatment?
Fair point. Now, you just mentioned oncosurgeon, so I'm going to ask, what is the difference between an oncologist and a surgical oncologist? Or is there a difference? And when does a patient need which one?
So basically, our team consists of 3 main people. It's a surgical oncologist, a medical oncologist, and a radiation oncologist.
Okay.
So these are the 3 main guys. And then you have the radiologist, pathologist, oncopathologist and all who are then help out from the periphery.
Okay.
So basically, the surgical oncologist deals with the surgical part. The medical oncologist deals with the drugs and the chemotherapy.
Okay.
And the radiation oncologist deals with the radiation.
Okay.
How we handle our patients is we have something called as a tumor board.
Okay.
3 of us sit together and we discuss every patient we're going to treat over the next 1 week.
Okay.
We do this on every Monday in our hospital. So
Okay.
me and Dr. Salkar are the surgeons, Dr. Jacob is our medical oncologist and Gunjan is our radiation oncologist. And then we have the other guys who join us as well.
Okay.
Every patient's file we go through, we plan this is the treatment, so from now on the patient is going to follow up with you. And that's how we split patients between us. So that way everyone's opinion is heard and you miss out on a lot of errors otherwise. Small mistakes which you would have normally missed out on, we pick up.
Okay.
And the patient also feels comfortable because he meets the whole team and he knows, okay, I go to him, I finish treatment, I go to him, and then finally finish off with him.
Okay.
So that's how it goes.
And when I as a patient come for the first time,
You
who
could
am I
visit
meeting?
either. You could meet any of the 3. Because
Okay.
basic oncology we're all trained in. So
I see.
we pick up and we say, okay, your best person would be him or him.
Okay.
So that's how it is.
Okay, that's really good to know because I think quite often you're never quite sure who you have to go to the first time
Meet
round.
any one of them.
Okay. Now, I'd like to touch on some aspects that lie on this fence between fact and fiction, right? So, for example, say the curative properties of soursop or aloe vera. Now, is this fact or is it myth? Would you care to comment?
So to put it blank and flat out, I'll tell you one thing. 25%, that is 1 in 4 of my patients will come, get diagnosed, go back home. They'll probably get diagnosed in the first or second stage, go back home, and suddenly you don't hear from the patient again. You hear from them 2 months later, and they come from first stage disease, they now come with 4th stage disease. And saying, doctor, please treat me, please do something about it. You ask them what you did for the last 2 months, they say either the standard treatments here are, one is the saso, next is aloe vera. Then there are people who say, stop consuming milk and sugar and your cancer will disappear. The new fad in Goa is oxygen therapy.
We've been reading about this, yes.
Oxygen therapy is the latest fad. From the last month or so, there's a new one which has come out as saying fasting. If you fast, the tumor cells die faster than you die, so the tumor cells die off and you survive. None of these work. All these patients come back. And they come back, originally diagnosed in the first stage, come back in the 4th stage and say, doctor, please do something now. And at that time, there's nothing you can really do. So please do not fall for these things. They do not work. Trust me on this, they do not work. Ayurvedic treatment, I agree, for things like hair fall, for things like rash, allergies, asthma, Ayurvedic treatment works because it works on the same on the principle.
Okay.
But for cancer, it does not really work. There is no real Ayurvedic treatment for cancer. We use it only in palliative patients to control the pain, to control symptoms and all that.
Okay.
But for an upfront treatable patient, you have to undergo one of the treatments I mentioned earlier: surgery, chemo, radiation, or hormonal treatment.
Right. Okay. Now, there's a wealth of information out there on Google. How does a patient start to sift through it? On the one hand, you want to adhere to the doctor's guidelines. On the other hand, you're usually desperate enough to try anything that's been recommended by well-meaning people that we meet, as well as success stories on the internet. Now, you don't know what's true, what's not. At the same time, you hesitate sometimes to ask the doctor about these indigenous aids because you're not sure whether you might be infringing on the doctor's space, for example. So how does a patient start to sift through all of this information to make the right decision?
So what happens is, basically when patients are searching on Google, there are two types of patients. One is those who are searching for recent advances, and one is people who are searching just to see, is my doctor doing the right thing or not.
Okay.
So when it comes to recent advances, the thing is, for example, we guys who passed out from Tata, we got a WhatsApp group on which we keep sharing every new bit of information that comes out.
Okay.
Any new paper, any new publication comes out, we share it on that and we read it.
Okay.
So any of us, in fact, any oncologist is upfrontly, he knows the information of what's released today. If it's released in US today, we know it here today.
Okay.
So that's how up to date we are when it comes to information.
Okay.
The second thing I tell my patients is, even a clown can put anything up on Google. It is not cited, it is not proofread. Anyone can write anything on Google.
That's true.
So you're comparing my 8 years of knowledge with somebody else's 15 minutes of knowledge and you're taking a decision.
Okay.
So when you have someone who's been working in the field for years, you do not, why do you go and ask somebody on Google as to how to do it? Because he's going to tell you, we're going to tell it to you much better because we deal with things like this.
Right. Okay.
When it comes to repairing your phone and things like that, people don't write on their own. They go to a service center and listen to the guy.
That's
if you're going to listen about your phone, if you're going to listen about your vacuum cleaner and your washing machine, your health is a lot more important than these things. So you might as well listen to the professional when it comes to these things as well.
Right. Okay. Now, are any forms of cancer communicable? Can we hug and hold cancer patients? Just for people to know.
Cancer is not communicable. You can hug a patient, you can hold a patient. A husband and wife can have relationships if one of them has cancer. There's nothing wrong with it. The only restriction I say is, if you have a friend who's having surgery or radiation, go ahead and spend time with them. If a friend of yours has chemotherapy, then be a little careful. It's not that it's bad for you, but the thing is, during chemotherapy, your ability to fight infections reduces. So if too many visitors visit someone who's on chemotherapy, he can be prone to infections.
Okay.
So during chemotherapy, I would suggest that you just give them a call, tell them you're thinking about them, that you wish them well, speak to them for some time, because remember, fighting cancer is not only physical, it's emotional as well.
Yes.
So you're going to give them that emotional footstool to fight the disease.
Right.
But in chemo patients, do it from afar. Do not really spend time with them, because the more the visitors, the more risk of infection you're going to
For them, yes.
they're going to face.
Okay. Are pharmaceutical companies actually hiding the cure, as many conspiracy theorists would like to suggest?
See, that's again a very good question, because a lot of times we say drug companies are hiding treatment, things like that. Let me put it simply. Steve Jobs died of cancer. Now, if there was treatment available, Steve Jobs, who's worth so much of money, would have found it for sure. He would have bought out the drug companies and he would have bought the treatment. There are so many massive billionaires whose parents and relatives have died of cancer.
Yeah.
If they could not find the cure, I'm pretty sure that the lay people, by going and searching on the internet, you're not going to find it. And then you get people saying that there is this treatment available in Portugal. Right now, the latest one is Spain and Portugal, where there's a treatment available in this center, which is good. Some people say there's this treatment in UP, which is available, this treatment in Belgaum, which is available. See, if it is available, institutes like Tata Hospital and all will grab the opportunity to research on it and find out whether it works or not.
Right.
Recently, I think Arjun Rampal or someone was talking about his mother who received treatment in somewhere in Portugal and Lisbon.
Okay.
And she got cured of cancer. And 3 months later, she died of the disease.
Okay.
So the thing is, what happens is you get that momentary elation and the momentary feel-good factor, and immediately they say, I'm cured. But the disease comes back and comes back with a bang. So stick to regularized treatment that has been approved by the boards like the FDA and things like that, and your chance of cure will go up significantly.
Okay. Well, that puts that one to rest at least.
Yeah.
Doctor, is there anything that you would like to specifically say to our viewers?
So stick to a healthy lifestyle. Like I said, exercise regularly, eat healthy, get a regular health checkup done, and if you have a symptom, if you have any sign, please get it checked immediately. Just to put a small note, I have patients who come and tell me, doctor, I had this lumps in 6 months. I say, why you didn't come 6 months back? They used to say, I'm scared that the doctor will tell me I have cancer. So the doctor telling you have cancer does not give you cancer. The disease is there, the doctor only tells you what's already there. So if you have a lump, if you have a symptom, if you have a cough, if you have blood coming out from anywhere, get it checked immediately. So you and we guys as doctors can work together and increase your cure rate to hopefully in the early 90s, maybe late 90%.
Great. Thank you so much, Dr. Eugene,
Thank you
for
so
all
much.
of
Yeah.
that information. And thank you to all of you watching, our viewers. Remember, if in doubt about anything at all, ask your doctor. There is no such thing as being too careful, and at the end of the day, your health is a collaboration between yourself and your doctor. Stay healthy, stay well.